Hello everyone, hello again. Welcome back to my Life in Series seminar from the Center for Minorities Research, where we look at the life of professionals working with minorities and vulnerabilities. We delve into the challenges and rewards of such a career and ask our guests what makes this journey a fulfilling one. Thank you for joining us back again. The session today is being recorded and will be turned into a podcast and YouTube episode. Make sure that you follow us on both, please. Today, I'm excited to also let you know that we are currently developing a parallel and asynchronous My Life in project in non-English languages. These sessions too will be posted as a podcast and YouTube episodes in our channel. Today we're very happy to have with us Nina Laurie and Renato Gozzer Wuest, Program Director at the Innovations for Ocean Action Foundation. Nina will introduce Renato more extensively a little later. Nina is a professor of human geography at the University of St. Andrews, where her work addresses social inclusion, international development, and environmental sustainability through long-term field research with marginalized and indigenous communities. She has conducted research across Latin America and South Asia, focusing on topics including development, climate resilience, and participatory approaches to geographical knowledge. Nina's contribution has been recognized with awards such as the Royal Geographical Society Basques Medal, and she continues to lead interdisciplinary projects that center community-grounded perspectives in global development debates. For me personally, she is a role model, both as a human being and as a researcher dedicated to the values of long-term research with communities. Nina, over to you.
Thank you, Stabula. What lovely words. And it is really a thrill to be here. I'm a big fan of the work that the Centre for Minority Rights does. And this, I think, is a really exciting and important series. And I'm particularly pleased to see some of our master's students from our Sustainable Development Masters join. So a particular welcome to Georgia. And I also want to say that it's really strange to be able to sit in my office in St. Andrews looking at the sea, knowing that Renato is in Panama and that we are also being facilitated by Camilla in Brazil. And genuinely, before the pandemic, we just didn't do these things. So opportunity in after crisis is a good thing to be able to celebrate. So I'm just going to give a very brief introduction to Renato because I don't want to take away from the time when I know is going to talk very passionately. I got to know Renato about 5 years ago now, just before the pandemic, through my friend and colleague, Dr. Chanya Mendo, who is a marine biologist working in our school now. At the time, she was in the Scottish Oceans Institute. And Tanya herself is Peruvian, and she works on Peruvian fisheries. And I knew about Renato through Tanya, and it was only during the pandemic that I got involved in a research project with them looking at value chains of artisanal fishers and how they basically could be resilient in the face of the COVID crisis. And to put this in context, Peru suffered the worst death toll from COVID anywhere in the world. And these fisheries and the livelihoods around them were really important. And I was just struck by Renato's passion and commitment, and the fact that he just juggled about three different lives of writing, being an activist, someone who founded an NGO in this area as well, and is deeply passionate. So that's why I wanted to invite him to this seminar series, because he's charted a path like many advocates for minority rights in a way that brings together lots of different networks and people. And also, I want this opportunity for us, maybe in a minority rights setting, to think about a group of people who might not generally be thought of as a minority and have rights that need protecting in the context of these global times, particularly of climate change and of livelihoods. So without further ado, then I'm going to jump straight into a series of questions. I've scripted these questions with Renato, but we might well go off piste. So we'll see how we start. But first of all, Renato, bienvenido, un gusto. Thank you for coming. Uh, and I would like you to share with the other people here why you are passionate about artisanal fisheries.
Hola, hi to all. So first of all, thank you for inviting me and giving me the time to talk to you. Uh, so why I've been passionate about artisanal fisheries? I think so that it was when I started to work. I would want to have a academic career. I started in a lab of population genomics, and for doing my bachelor thesis in a population structure of Maji fishery, which is a big artisanal fishery in Peru. And as part of this work, I was abroad to fishing near for 30 days in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And then I realized that more than my thesis, I met a lot of friends that are until these days my friends. I could understand how many people live marginalized in these fisheries, working with health insurances, subjected to corruption, extortions, to having a lot of socioeconomic constraints. And I left population genomics, and I understood that there are many things to do in countries like Peru for a lot of people, and also now I work far than Peru, and you can see everywhere the same socioeconomic problems in the artisanal fisheries. So this is why it's
Okay.
important to invest time and efforts
So,
on this.
Renato, for those of us who aren't don't have a marine biology background or a marine engineering background, fisheries genomics, population genomics, that is fish, is it? It's a population of fish. Is that what that's so what is that?
Yeah, population genomics wants to identify the fishing stocks that need to be managed using, and to doing this, there's a lot of techniques. One, maybe the more powerful tool is the genomics. So yeah,
Okay.
you need to extract DNA and do things in the lab, and then try to identify the units to manage scientifically. No?
Okay, so you started with that and then you moved to basically the human lab, the livelihoods, the other dimensions of that fisheries as well then. What are the rights-based issues associated with this sector? You've already mentioned a few, but if you were to pick out, say, the main three, what would you say that are the rights-based issues associated with this sector?
Basically, one, the institutionalized marginalization of communities, then for sure poverty. Yeah, people have difficulties to access to the institutions, to have the rights to participate in management, but also even for those who want to participate, there are a lot of limitations related to poverty. Poverty. People need money to secure livelihoods, to invest in health, um, education of their families, food security constraint, and all these things related. So I would say that, yeah, there are institutional problems, but also for people who can participate, there are other constraints related to livelihoods. No?
Okay, thank you. So it's really about a complex set of exclusion around rights that are sort of social rights as well as legal rights. Um, Obviously, this is a centre for minority rights. And when and where do you think the language of minority rights is most suited to advocacy in the fishery sector, particular language
Yeah,
of minority rights? Or maybe you don't. I mean, I definitely think that a lot of what you do is about minority rights, but maybe not everybody would see that.
yeah. So I think that as people in the smaller scale fisheries are, in most cases, rationality exclude from participation in governance. So any time is a time to raise their voices, to organize themselves, um, to make them, to ensure they can be heard. Because if not, you simply do not exist. No, so I think that yeah, people need to take advantage of any opportunity to participate to improve their situation, and to do so, people need to continue increase their organizational development and capacities to participate, because yeah, you can have the right, but you need to have tools to make that your rights being respected. And I think that there is not other way to have a voice if you, or if communities, if minorities, if you can see in that in that word, do not have the tools and the capacities, and are not clear on that they need to make their voice be heard. No.
Heard. So just again, for people who aren't in a fisheries background, artisanal fisheries are basically fishers who are operating at a community level, smaller scale. Are they often closer inshore, or do they also go further out into sea?
In countries like Peru, that you maybe at this time you know that Peru is a crazy country, so small scale fisheries uh, normally are very coastal fisheries of a small scale, but in our country we have probably some of the biggest fleets, artisanal fleets in the country, and we have artisanal fishers who navigate hundreds of nautical miles away our coast. And for example, I work and I dedicate most of my time working with the jumbo flying squid fishery, which is composed by around 30,000 fishers who fish frequently outside in the open areas, where, for example, they overlap with the fleet or the operations of other fleets, like the industrial fishing fleets from China, who also fish jumbo flying squid. So the
Okay.
case of Peru is a very particular case of small scale fisheries. We perceive, and as you can see, maybe in the artisanal fishers from Scotland, people doing a very small intensity activity, and that is artisanal. In Peru, there are uh, dozens of thousands of people doing this kind of fishery, but also there are thousands of thousands people doing open seas fisheries with small boats.
And one of the things I know that the north of Peru has in common with parts of Scotland is the scallop fishing, diving for scallop fishing. So these sorts of fisheries are very important to communities all around the world, including large parts of West and East Africa, as well as large parts of South America. So for me, it's interesting that these are numerous people, but that it's actually, we can think of them as minorities because their rights in the context of these bigger commercial fisheries are almost invisible, or their voice, as you're saying, is almost invisible. And so this is what I want to bring you to, what I know that you want to speak about right now. You're talking to us from Panama, from a very particular conference. And so can you tell us a little bit about that conference, and how minority rights are on the agenda of fishers, and what's just happening? Because I know from what you've said to me, it's all kicking off.
First, I want to say that yeah, people perceive that minorities could be a small group of people, but in the case of this kind of fisheries like the jumbo flying squid, you can have thousands of people, but there are thousands, but they can be still marginalized, and their voices can not be included in the agenda of improvements of the policies in countries. No, uh, saying that, I am here in Panama in the commission meeting of the South Pacific Regional Fisheries Management Organization of this year, that group around 20 flag states, including the EU, US, coastal countries like Chile, Peru, Ecuador, and also distant water fleets nations from Asia like China, Chinese Taipei, South Korea, who navigate kilometers, thousands of kilometers to post in front of the South Pacific Ocean to fish the jumbo flying squid, no? And it is really interesting because in this forum convene the interest for improving the governance of the jumbo flying squid fisheries with two important players. From one side, the small scale fishers or artisanal fishers from Ecuador, Chile, and Peru, who operate with artisanal boats, and on the other side, the interest of the distant water fleet nations from Asia who also fish the same resources, and there are, you can imagine, a lot of tensions. And one of our missions here is to try to make that the voice of the artisanal fisheries can be also included in the conversations that here are happening to ensure that the artisanal voices don't be overlooked in this important decision-making multilateral body, no?
So, but very practically, in those meetings, how can you make that happen? What are your techniques to make that happen?
It is, we are in the meeting number 14, so we have had a lot of years participating in this forum. I think that in early development time of this RFMO, the South Pacific Regional Fisheries Management Organization, the first to ensure that everybody understand that the small scale fisheries fleets exist, because I think that this organization exists for near 15 years. And recently, when we started to cooperate with artisanal fisheries, then they were included in the organizations. They were invited to be part of the delegation of their countries or the delegations of a observer group that we offer secretariat support, which is the Kalamazur, which is a committee of producers and processors from Latin American countries involved in squid.
So basically, you were able to make them visible, and by supporting them being visible, they then got included on their national platforms.
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't word it in that way because we are offering technical support. We are technicians, we are dedicated lawyers, fishing engineer, biologists. So our role is to provide organizational development capabilities and also technical and strategic support to the people who have the legitimacy to participate in governance, and then in the past were excluded to this governance body. So I wouldn't put or I don't want to put the focus on our role as professionals, because the important is that people can have their own voice and also for sure receive specialized support from technical people like me or the team who work with me. So I think that we have an important role, but the most important role is that the people, for example, here we have delegates from the Peruvian National Small Scale Fishing Society, Elsa Vega, who is the president of this organization. She is here. She invested her time to be here, to be informed, to receive, to identify their policy ask, to coordinate with the legitimacy that she has, to coordinate with their own governments, etc., etc.
Is that unusual that a woman would be a representative of a artisanal fisheries organization?
Yeah, she's a leader of, I could say that the most important second level union of fishers. Basically, her organization is composed by 1,700 jumbo flying squid and mahi-mahi vessels. You can in each vessels operates between 6 to 8 fishers, so you can imagine that she represents
Yeah.
thousands of people, and it is important that authorities, country delegates from EU, from the US, from China, heard directly Elsa because she has the legitimacy to speak on behalf of their people. We can, for sure, provide technical support, scientific support, legal support, participate in strategic discussions to help them to prepare strategies. But for sure, we don't have the legitimacy, no? And it is important to understand our role as advisors or as a supporter organizations.
Okay, I just want to move a little bit on, Renato, to your own career trajectory. And as I've said, you were one of a number of people who set up the NGO Redes. Could you tell us, and this is what you did before your current job, could you tell us a little bit about why, given your background, you decided to set up an NGO and what that NGO did particularly to support fishers' rights?
We, with our colleagues, we found Redes after having a complex time working in the regional government of Piura in northern Peru. So we wanted to, and we participate in an important project in the government because we wanted to have more direct connection with the small scale fishers leaders with their problems and trying to support them directly. But sadly, the corruption, these kind of things that you see in a normal day in an office in in, in a public office in the country, we had a very bad experience, and then we left without job in northern Peru. We were from Lima, so we had to move to there, and we didn't want to return to Lima without accomplish our mission. So we decided to continue there in northern Peru and founded this organization because we just simply wanted to develop uh, projects to support people in a framework in a co-management framework, no? To help people to have the capabilities to participate more actively in the governance of the small scale fisheries in Peru. So that was the experience in Redes. Redes still exists. I moved to then to other organization called Sustainable Fisheries Partnership, and then now in uh, Innovations for Ocean Action Foundation. No? So basically, I continue doing the same.
Yeah. And that's when I first met you when you were working in Redis, and I think you were just transitioning to your new job, and when you came actually to St Andrews. But I'm interested in that link that you have with academia and with researchers, because a lot of NGOs, including those that work on minority rights, are so focused on advocacy that the types of research they do would be impact policies or feasibility studies or monitoring or just, I don't mean just in a negative way, but mainly focused on the deliverables from a capacity building or advocacy project. But Redis has always worked with universities, not just St Andrews, also the Agrarian University in Lima, and also I think regional universities. And you, in whatever role you've had, continue to collaborate on directing research, but also on academic outputs. So I would like to ask you why you think it's important to work with universities, and then I'll ask you a bit about the publishing. But why, as an advocate, you think it's important to continue working with universities?
Research help you to clarify your thinking, to prepare well developed ideas, to meditate adequately the things that you want to then to advocate. So I think that two things can move parallel because advocate move faster than research, but also if you research, you will have a lot of extra tools to make that the advocate work will be more accurate, more strategic. So I think that it is a good exercise for thinking, for collective thinking also with colleagues to ensure you have accurate and precise ideas that then people in the policy work, the decision makers, for example, buy in the proposals or etc. So I think that yeah, you said that a lot of people are doing more like a fast food policy reports that then nobody care about that because probably I don't want to generalize, but a lot of these materials are accumulate a lot of common points, generalities, not well precise policy ask, or more than the ask, the policy proposals of solutions, for example. No, so I think that in that matter, research is in my personal case is helping me a lot, and I try to invest time to do research. Sometimes it's impossible to do in the regular work because it's more my regular work is more adrenalinic work, and for research you need to uh, find the room of time to be calm, to thinking well. No, so I think that it is a good complement, and I hope that in the future. Academia and also NGOs be more connected because I think that the products and also not only NGOs, also governments and fishers organizations will be more connected because I think that it is the way to create a synergetic effect, no, on and positive effect, no.
You've mentioned a little bit about your experience of working with government, and that was very much also in a regional government setting. Now you're moving very much in international circles, and you're based in Chile, and you're in these international circles. Um, what do you see the opportunities, or uh, rather than the limitations, the opportunities of working with governments in multilateral settings? Do you see opportunities that you hadn't seen when you were more locally based or not?
Yes, for sure, because with the time, sometimes, yeah, you need to be angry against the government because you is the people who is in charge of solving problems, and you see systematic problems continuing along the time. But then with the years, and I hope to I perceive me as a younger person, but I think that I have some years working here, and I perceive now the governments and also the researchers as a communities similar to the fishing communities with very similar coordinations and organizational development weaknesses. So you have a lot of room to help them, for example, with offering capacities, making agreements to do collaborative research with, with, with governmental marine research institutes. Um, Sometimes they have also budget constraints. Government in Peru or Ecuador or in Central America have an infinite number of demands, but have a very limited budget. And in additional to the budget, they have a lot of institutional weaknesses like the corruption, like lack of motivation. I can see a lot of people in the government that in his early career are really passionate about the work. And then after 10 years, this absorb your soul. So
Mm.
it is important as outsider to understand this kind of dynamics because yeah, you can also can critics, and it is important to make critics, but also it is important to understand what is happening behind these behaviors. No, people in the government have they bad attitudes because they are everybody, all of them are bad people that hate their country, and for sure this is not the answer. There are a lot
Yeah.
of good peoples, but lacking a lot of capacities, motivations, a lot of things to do to come uh, fulfill the expectations that people have, and for sure marginalized small scale fishers have millions of demands, and it is so frustrating for fisheries to not to connect with the government. But all of these things have um, have an answers, and I think that there are a lot of good people in our countries, and our work as outsiders is also, in my case personally, to perceive them as another community that have the same coordination failures and the same limitations to participate adequate in governance than a fisher community, no? And yeah.
Thank you. That is a really, really, really interesting and encouraging answer, because you're not speaking as somebody who right now is looking at burnout. So I would like to ask, though, perhaps more personally, how you manage the moments of burnout in what is now quite a long career, and of stress, or also of disappointment. I know our shared disappointments about having our fabulous papers turned down. So, how do you personally, in this making of this interesting to career, how do you cope with disappointments, burnouts, and stress?
I think that I part of a bigger community of people who share the same values. I have the luck that a lot of people who share the same values that I transmit in this conversation work today with me. So I am part of a bigger group. Also from the academic side, no, all these collaborations that we have done with you, with Tanya, with San Andrews in general. So uh, the life or people who are looking for the same opportunities and have the same expectations and the same visions are there, and it is important when you meet amazing people to ensure that you uh, keep them together and work together and create together and to think collectively, and also in a complementary way to keep away uh, all people that do not want to do the right things, that I don't, it's not to isolate them, to understand that they are part of this, but you won't be able to work because there is a lot of emotions happening all the time. Also, there are a lot of criminality to leaders. Um, I earlier I talked about the Elsa Vega story, and I hope that you invite her to participate in one of these meetings. Yeah, he received um, a lot of insults in social media. They suffer violence, sometimes physical violence, to defend the rights. So it is important to also to have support to survive to all these things. So I think that it is important that you are mentally uh, clear to can happen these very emotional things, but also it is important that you are in a good mental position to help the others, because the leaders suffer the real
Mm,
the real pressure. We that are simply organizations that offer support, we are not in the center of the spot. Nobody wants to to commit criminality acts against us. No, so
yeah.
yeah.
And I have definitely witnessed the solidarity and the nurturing of the networks that you've been part of building, and I certainly remember through the COVID times that was very important. And um, I think one of the things that I admired most about the joint project we had was the way that you and Tanya and others nurtured the researchers in the cut-off communities during COVID, but the researchers who were themselves fishers. Um, for example, Percy, and how you've mentored him and how you've brought him along. Could you just say something before we sort of move to closing about that sort of role of not just supporting but of mentoring early career people, particularly those coming from a grassroots, and mentoring them into advocacy work for the minority rights of fishers?
Yes, for sure. Percy is a good example
Mm.
because he works currently with me. So
Yeah.
Percy is a member of the small scale fishing community of Lexlia in northern Peru. Uh, she went to the Piura National University in northern Peru, and as he was, he's very has a good attitude to talk. He's a very um, nice person. He was invited for many NGOs that make extractive work using Percy as an example of, oh, this is the fisher who study at a university and blah blah blah, and saying circular stories about his origins. But as part of this project, we talked to Percy and offered him to do his fishing engineer thesis, and we made a thesis with Percy, and now he's a professional who can compete with any other professional in the field of the fishing engineer, and now is not perceived as only a person who is peculiar because it is from a fishing community. No? So I think that it is important to identify young people with expectations to have a personal and professional growth, and try to help them to have the tools, to have the opportunities to growth, no?
Mm.
Because a lot of people, sadly, in communities like Persis communities, sadly, do not have the opportunities to grow in a professional career, no?
And just as I've got two last questions. The first would like you. I'm going to finish with a question about El Niño in Peru, but first of all, I'd just like you to say something about how you have worked with artificial intelligence most recently, and what has excited you about it, and maybe even scared you. But yeah.
Yeah, this is an important question because uh, artificial intelligence can be harmful, but also can offer you a lot of opportunities. In our case, it gives us a lot of opportunities to disseminate messages. We translate papers in minutes. You need to understand that working in Peru, everybody only speaks Spanish as mother language. Academic literature is very restricted for them. Now with artificial intelligence, we can translate papers in seconds. We can then check. We can disseminate, transform them as a reports, more graphic reports to the. We also now are doing podcasts. We are doing interactive videos. I'll, even I don't know if Nina, I've shared with you, but with also with Tanya, we have done cumbia songs
Ah.
to explain some policy topics in the language that uh, the artisanal fishers communicate easier. That allows also to use TikTok and WhatsApp and Facebook, which are the media that they use, and also I don't know, if you want to connect with people, you need to use the channels that they use,
Yeah.
and AI help a lot. It has a lot of risk, but also balancing the costs over the benefits. I can see that the benefits to disseminate a lot of information to ensure that there will be debates more informed, it is a really great tool.
And as you know, you've been a real inspiration to me, who is a bit of a dinosaur in this regard, and I'm very indebted to you. So finally, before we open it up to questions, I just wanted to bring us home to Peru, and an El Niño Costero event is looking like it's occurring in Peru as we speak. So I wondered if you could very briefly explain what an El Niño Costero is, but if you could then say particularly what it could mean right now or in the next few weeks and months for fishers' livelihoods and their rights, so that we finish on the note of fishers' rights as often seen as a minority group.
El Niño is an oceanographic event that can be summarized that the temperature of the sea rise alarming, and then it creates a lot of precipitation, so the rivers start to llover, how would say llover in English, to raining,
It rains.
to rains, and then the rivers start to grow, and everybody and most of the coastal cities in Peru collapse because there are not good systems to return the water from the river to the sea without crossing a lot of cities that sadly are swamped due to the rain.
And the fish species move away, don't they? The usual fish species, yeah.
Yes, and as the warm waters move from north to south, tropical habitats from fishing can be moved to the south of the country. Another important cold water species like the anchoveta, for example, tend to be scarce or even moving deeply or move to Chile, no? So
Right.
it is an opportunity. New fisheries emerge, but also it is it has a lot of risk due to the collapse of the cities. And for sure, when cities collapse with a lot of water, it emerged a lot of also some sanitary problems, a lot of illnesses like dengue, pandemics, for example. No.
So for the fishers, there'll be a double whammy then of their livelihoods being affected and their rights to good health care also being affected.
Yes, for sure. Because also, if the cities collapse, a limited governmental capacity to provide support to the citizens, including fisheries, they basically, as we saw during the COVID-19, people is by themselves. People need to find a way to survive and to continue until the situations be normalized, no?
So we will finish the interview with that and just turn. I don't know, Renato, if you can see in the chat that there are some questions already from Catherine, Rugari, Emanuele. I can read them out unless you want me to. Would you like me to read them out? So the first one from Catherine. Oh, that's my alarm for the questions on time. It's a pleasure to learn about your fascinating work, particularly that you include minority groups in relevant practices. I wonder if you encounter a situation where they feel not able to participate fully due to problems such as lack of knowledge, capacity, and resources, and how you deal with it.
Yes, it is a very interesting question. Yeah, there are a lot of limitations for participation. One can be that institutional marginalization. The government basically doesn't want people to participate because if people understand their rights, have knowledge, etc., can be a problem, especially in contexts where governments do not have the full capacity to solve all the demands that people can have. No, so and I think another important limitation for participation is that people itself do not interiorize the importance of being well organized in countries like Peru, being organized, create unions. These kind of things are not well perceived by the country in general, because we have problems with the terrorism in the past. So there are a bad marketing about organize your group to defend your rights, no? But it is the only way to participate. And for sure, we can explain later, but for sure there are many limitations to make an effective participation, and we need to deal with that, and to help to create incentive, because again, if you and this is an sorry Nina for the time, but it is important. Sometimes NGOs or academics or people want to push people to participate, but in that way you won't make that the people participate, because people need to be that as an a conscious, as an a very rational act and planned act. So you need to help to create these conditions, but you cannot, if you think that you can oblige to people to participate, you are dead. And for sure, I have participated and I known a lot of, maybe 100 of projects that fail because this invasive and top-down approach to offer cooperation to minority groups. Also, yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's a lovely, lovely answer. We have a question from Ujeri Delgado. Hi, Renato. Good to see you here. I have a question. Technical skills are important for working with small-scale fisheries, but how important are soft skills in this sector?
A lot, a lot. It is very important, and also to understand that people of these groups are very angry with the system, are very angry with academics, because they perceive that academics are an elite that live comfortable while they are having more, dealing with tough situation, are angry against NGOs or soft skills first for you, and then to help people to gain this kind of skills are really key, because people need to understand, to negotiate. People want, in these groups, make agreements of maximums, but here nobody will get agreement of maximums. People need to create possible agreements that sometimes means that you won't get the 100% that you expected. So you need to be ready to negotiate and to file middle points, and to be open to that. And when you are totally agree with the system, you want everything or nothing. And many times people get nothing to not be able to understand that some initial step is one step, then there will be another and another, but you won't have everything from the night to the day, no?
Thank you. Thank you. Emmanuel's got a question about the gender composition and the age. Are there a lot of younger men who work as fishers as opposed to older men? And are there many women involved? She means at the level of the fishery itself. And she says, with Shalom, Emmanuel.
Hi, Emmanuel. So I don't know if this is sad, but it is a truth. The fishers are getting older because their a fisher want that their son be a lawyer or be a researcher or be a doctor, but they don't want that that their son continue a tradition in the fisheries. In many cases, in other cases, this couldn't be the situation, but at least in Latin America, what I can see that fishers invest all their efforts and money to ensure that their sons can live this activity. No, given that, you need to understand that your leaders won't be necessarily from the core of youngest people in the fishing communities. Now, youngest people are happily at universities, are working in other areas, and their fathers, their grandfathers are the fishers, and you need to adapt to this reality, because probably an older person, yeah, didn't have, for example, formal education, and etc. And you need to try to control of these variables when you design um, a cooperation, or when you start a cooperation agreement with them. The same with women. And for example, something difficult for many people to understand working with small fishing communities in Peru is that the religion is a very important factor. There are a lot of, yeah, in general, people in the academic side are more open to not to be part of a cult or a religion. But when you work in a fishing community, you will see machismo. You will see that the role of the woman sometimes is totally overlooked. Um, and it is difficult, but you must adapt to that reality and to understand that sometimes you can have you can do a lot of value judgments, but but you need to respect that you are an outsider, and people have their own values and community values, and they for sure cannot be the same of yours, no?
And I think that that's also why it's important in work to highlight when there are strong women leaders like the person you've
Elsa.
introduced us to, and the woman we met in northern Peru who had the whole business about taking the trucks to the lagoon to bring the fish back, and also disseminating the work about during COVID the role of women in fish sales and things like that. So it is a slow process of, as you say, respect, but also working with communities and with schools as well, which is something else I know that um, we've all together been involved in. I'm going to finish now, but I'm going to finish saying thank you with the words from Steve now, because I think this summarizes, Renato, perfectly why this has been such a great time of you sharing with us. And I really am realmente muchísimas gracias. And what Steve says, I think sums up what we'd all like to say. As someone who's interested in the small boat fleet in the UK and supporting our fishermen, your work is an inspiration. There are also parallels with the experience of our small-scale fishers, in whom I'm also interested. Thanks. Thank you from us here in St Andrews, and I know that Stavula wants to express her final words.
Thank you so much, both. Thank you, Renato. Thank you, Nina. This is a wonderful session. We learned so much. I learned a lot from you both. And thank you for taking the time from the conference, Renato, to join us. It means a lot. It means so much to make this connection, this direct and lived connection with someone who has experience as a researcher and also as someone who advocates community in communities in such a long time. You said that long-term research is important, is so important, and for us researchers, it's not only about authority, but also it is about clarity. You said something quite beautiful. Long-term research gives you clarity about a lot of issues. And I take that as someone who respects and practices long-term research. Thank you so much, both, and to our audience. And I would like to remind you for the next session, 11th March, with Christos Linderis and Elio Rakotamana. Thank you so much, everybody.